UFC, the world leader in MMA. Experience it on Fuel TV.
The UFC is back in Brazil, featuring a top 5 battle in the middleweight division. Making his promotional debut, number 5 ranked Luke Rockhold was the last man to wear the Strikeforce 185-pound belt. Now he's got his sights set on a new championship, but standing in his path is perennial title contender Vitor Belfort. Plus, in the co-main event, 2 more top middleweights meet in the octagon as surging number 8 ranked Ronaldo Jacare Souza makes his UFC debut against the always dangerous Chris Camozzi. Tomorrow, the UFC is on FX, but today it's time to make things official on the scales. It's the UFC Weigh-in on Fuel TV.
There they are, the 2 men set to battle in the UFC on FX8 main event. The number 2 ranked middleweight in the world, Vitor Belfort, and 5th ranked Luke Rockhold. It's a future Hall of Famer against the last Strikeforce middleweight champion. They'll tangle in the octagon tomorrow, but today we've got the entire weigh-in covered from Jaraguá do Sul, Brazil. And welcome into our Fox Sports studios here in Los Angeles, California. I'm Karen Bryant, joined by UFC stars Chael Sonnen and DC Daniel Cormier. Now, Chael, you have recently departed the 185-pound weight class, but this weekend it is the marquee class with 3 of the 4 main card fights going down at 185 pounds. We're also going to see the debut of Strikeforce's top 2 stars, Luke Rockhold and Jacare Souza. How excited are you?
Oh, I can't wait. This is like Christmas come early for me. Tomorrow can't get here soon enough. Jacare is finally going to get into the octagon. Now, this name may be new to a few people, but not the hardcore fans. Jacare has worked his way so far up the ladder. He's ranked number 8 in the world, and that's very hard to do without being in the UFC. That's something you went through, champ.
It's very, very difficult. Listen, the debut in the octagon is tough. I talked to my friend Luke Rockhold the other day, and I said, Luke, deal with all the things outside of the cage, but try and maintain your focus. You are here to fight. It's going to be big. There's going to be the big crowd, a lot of people, a lot of cheering and everything. We are here to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of boos as well. You're right. And as if that isn't enough, he's making his debut against one of the toughest tests in the division. We're talking about perennial contender and number 2 ranked Vitor Belfort. So, Chael, the Phenom made his MMA debut all the way back in 1996. 17 years later, at the age of 36, how is he still getting it done?
Look, he's just as fast, he's just as accurate, he's just as intimidating, but he's a lot smaller. When he made his debut, he was heavyweight. Then he came down to light heavyweight, won the championship over Randy Couture. Now he's down at middleweight. This guy is almost unstoppable. Outside of Anderson Silva, we haven't seen anybody that can beat him here. Really big test, and I think finally mentally he's starting to believe in himself.
Yeah, well, in DC, your AKA teammate Luke Rockhold was a staple of the Strikeforce organization, their last 185-pound champion. So for fans, though, who haven't seen him before since he's new to the UFC, what can they expect?
A young, hungry fighter, throws diverse strikes, diverse kicks, great punching technique. This is a guy that's going to go forward. He's going to fight. He's going to pressure Vitor Belfort. Luke Rockhold started as a grappler. He's improved to the point now where he's finishing a lot of his fights in the stand-up. This is going to be a great fight.
Well, let's talk about finishing. We can expect fireworks because both of them are finishers. 8 of Rockhold's 10 wins have come in the first round, and for Belfort, his last 6 victories are all by KO or submission. Now, for more on this main event matchup, let's toss it to the 4th member of our team, Heidi Andral, who is in Brazil. Heidi?
Thanks so much. Coming to you from Jaraguá do Sul, the Phenom is back fighting in Brazil and headlining on FX. 2 things Vitor Belfort is very familiar with. Now, if you remember the last time the UFC staged a main card on FX, it was right here in Brazil in January, and Vitor Belfort, he had top billing then as well. Now, in that one, he defeated Michael Bisping in Sao Paulo, and a year prior to that, he submitted Anthony Johnson in Rio in front of his home crowd. That's not all of his best Brazilian performances, though. Remember, back in 1998, he defeated Vanderlei Silva in the first ever UFC event in Brazil. He's ready to put on a show in front of his home crowd once again. Now, his opponent is the last Strikeforce middleweight champion. That's Luke Rockhold. He's making his UFC debut. He said this is where he's dreamt of always being. He said if this fight goes 5 rounds, it plays into his hands because, quote, Vitor Belfort tends to slow down and wear down as the fight goes on, and that is where I get stronger and just start to loosen up. And of course, Luke knows that you're back in the studio, Daniel, and he told me to tell everybody to watch out for you. He said he embellishes, he's a storyteller. Now, I know you, so I know that's not the case. I'm just the messenger.
That's funny. Listen.
Thank you very much. I think she's right. I think you do embellish.
Listen, I give Luke a hard time. He's one of my better friends in the world. You know, I love the guy. I'm excited to see him in this position. This is where Luke belongs, man. This guy's ready for this moment. I can't wait to see him get in there and fight. I'm excited for him, and I'm going to lay off of him because he did get top billing in his first UFC fight.
Well, very nice. Right now, it is time to get you, the fans, involved. We're asking in our Twitter poll question, who will win the main event? If you think it will be Vitor Belfort, just tweet the hashtag Team Belfort. If you think Luke Rockhold will win, tweet the hashtag Team Rockhold. We'll have the results later in the show. When the UFC weigh-in on Fuel TV returns, it's scale tipping time. Belfort and Rockhold square off on the stage, plus the rest of our fighters on our action-packed 13-fight card will weigh in from Brazil. John Anik is on the mic when we come back.
The UFC weigh-in on Fuel TV is brought to you by Harley-Davidson, united by independence.
Thank you all for coming out to the UFC weigh-in. Reed Harris is here. Camilo Rodriguez. Cristiano working the scale for us. Marshall Zelaznik is in the building. One of the best matchmakers in the business, Sean Shelby, and the inimitable B-Dub Burt Watson. is here as well. Let's get it started. Our first prelim in the lightweight division. Lucas Minero Martins versus Jeremy Larson. First fighter on the scale, Jeremy Larson.
Everything you love about the UFC, including UFC Tonight, The Ultimate Fighter prelims, and the weigh-ins, are all moving to Fox Sports 1 beginning August 17th.
155.
155 for Jeremy Larson. And his opponent, Lucas Minero Martins.
$153.
153 for Minero. Our next bout comes in the flyweight division. Juicy A Formiga versus Chris Cariaso. $126 for Chris Cariaso. And his opponent, Juicy A Kamikaze Formiga. $126 for Juicy A Formiga. Staying in the flyweight division, John Hands of Stone Lineker versus Azamat Gashimov.
Azamat Gashimov is from the greatest wrestling region in the world, Dagestan, Russia. He will need to use his wrestling to counter the aggressiveness of his opponent and control the fight where he is most comfortable. Another thing to watch for is this is the first time he's going to fight in the flyweight division. It'll be interesting to see how he responds to the weight cut while taking on one of the division's best fighters. 126.
126 for Azamat Gashimov. And his opponent, Sean Lineker. UFC prelims on Fuel TV. We begin in the light heavyweight division. Fabio Maldonado versus Roger the Hulk Holland. First fighter to the scale, Roger Holland. Opponent, Fabio Maldonado.
When I describe guys, I usually like to use about 100 words. But when talking about Fabio Maldonado, whose head is as hard as concrete and his heart is the size of a Buick, let's just use one word: tough.
$205. $205 for Fabio Maldonado. Brazilians in the bantamweight division, Yuri Alcantara versus Iliarde Santos. $134 for Iliarde Santos. And his opponent, Yuri Marajo Alcantara.
We apologize for the technical difficulties that we're having from the weigh-ins in Brazil. We are continuing our efforts to correct the problem.
.4. 136.4. .136 for Marajo. Welterweight division, Paulo Thiago versus Michel Tractor Prazeres.
Everything you love about the UFC, including UFC Tonight, The Ultimate Fighter prelims, and the weigh-ins, are all moving to Fox Sports 1 beginning August 17th.
.171 for Michel Prazeres. And his opponent, the UFC veteran, Paulo Thiago.
Paulo Thiago needs a win tomorrow night more than Oscar Pistorius needs a good attorney. He's lost 4 of his last 5 fights, and I really believe more than putting his skills on the line, he's been a victim of circumstance, but either way, he must get a victory.
.170 for Paulo Thiago. All right, our next bout is a good one in the lightweight division. Gleison Tibau versus John Cholish. First fighter to the scale, making his 3rd UFC appearance, John Cholish.
John Cholish has a Bachelor's of Science in Applied Economics and Management from Cornell University. He's even worked as a commodities broker. He drew interesting parallels between that profession and fighting. He said, the market can turn quickly and cost you dearly. The same thing in fighting. You have to adapt or you lose.
for John Cholish. Cholish has 1 hour to cut the final 0.2 of a pound. His opponent, the longtime UFC staple, Gleison Tebow.
Gleison Tebow is one of the bigger 155-pound fighters in the UFC. I don't see how anyone can question whether or not I can get to 205 when Tebow makes the 155-pound limit. Hell, he's bigger than I am.
For Gleison Tebow. Lightweight division, Francisco Masaranduba Trinaldo versus Mike the Wolverine Rio.
Mike the Wolverine Rio says he gets his nickname from his bearded look and the similarities to the comic book character. He's not complaining, though. He's a self-admitted video game nerd and comic nerd. He said that he actually is the first one in line at the midnight showings when there's a Marvel comic book premiere.
Power.
$156 for Mike Rio. His opponent, Francisco Masaranduba Trinaldo. $154 for Masaranduba. our final prelim on Fuel TV in the featherweight division. Akron Diaz versus Nick the Carney Lenz. First fighter to the scale, undefeated at 145 pounds, Nick Lenz.
$146.
146 for Nick Lenz. And his opponent, Akron Diaz. $146 for Akron Diaz. To the main card for the UFC live on FX. We begin in the middleweight division. Rafael Sapo Natal versus João Zeferino.
Fox Saturday Baseball returns tomorrow with 3 great matchups as the Reds will be in Philadelphia to take on the Phillies, or the Rays battle the Orioles, or the White Sox square off against the Angels in Anaheim. Fox Saturday Baseball, presented by Budweiser, returns tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Eastern.
$185 for the Brazilian Samurai. And his opponent, Rafael Sapo Natal.
Rafael Natal says his parents are his heroes. He actually gets his work ethic, he says, from his mother. His parents had a store since he was 12 years old. He's been working in it. He said that taught him responsibility. And with Mother's Day this past Sunday, he has a lot to be thankful for.
$186 for Rafael Sapo. Our next bout comes in the lightweight division. Rafael Dos Anjos versus Evan Dunham. First fighter to the scale is Evan Dunham. $156 for Evan Dunham. And his opponent, one of the top 10 lightweights in the world, Rafael Dos Anjos. 156 for Rafael dos Anjos. And now we move along to the co-main event in the middleweight division. Ronaldo Jacare Souza versus Chris Camozzi.
Quick turnaround for Chris Camozzi. He just fought at UFC 158, but for good reason. He said more wins equals more money, and more money means better wedding, which he's planning for July. When I asked him what was more difficult, proposing or getting in the octagon, he said definitely proposing. Women are way tougher to read.
186 for Chris Camozzi. And his opponent making his much anticipated UFC debut, Jacare Souza.
Pundits, analysts, guys in the back, fans of the fight world, everybody likes to discuss who the greatest grappler in MMA is. And though they usually don't always agree, everybody includes Jacare in that discussion.
$186.
186 for Jacare. And now we get to our main event. 5 rounds if needed in the middleweight division. Vitor Belfort versus Luke Rockhold. First fighter to the scale, Luke Rockhold.
Luke Rockhold believes that it is his destiny to be the UFC champion. Luke told me that this is just another fight in his journey and that the opponent doesn't matter. The result will be the same. He's gonna win. Luke feels that his confidence is deserved and his attitude is earned in the gym, and this is exactly where he belongs. $186.
186 for Luke Rockhold. And his opponent, the former UFC light heavyweight champion and the Phenom, Vitor Belfort.
Vitor Belfort is one of the most decorated fighters in the UFC, former light heavyweight champion. When I asked him if he would be champ again, he said, I am champion today. You can't be something that you're not already in your mind. Well, we'll see if that positive thinking leads to UFC gold around his waist once again.
$186.
186 for Vitor Belfort. What a main event we have got tomorrow night here in Brazil. Luke Rockhold making his UFC debut against the Phenom Vitor Belfort. What a backdrop for our main event tomorrow night. Thank you all for coming out. We hope to see you all back here tomorrow night. And for those of you watching on Fuel TV, plenty more coverage after the break from Los Angeles, California. Stay tuned, keep it here on Fuel TV.